Everyone at the board meeting chuckled as my wife, the CEO, threw her pen on the floor and shouted, "Pick it off the ground." I said nothing at all. My wife called that night and said I've decided to cut off all communication, stay away forever. I told her you'll regret it. By midnight, the company group was in a panic as the company's value had fallen by 95%, 540 missed calls. The conference room smelled of expensive cologne and phony confidence, with a faint undertone of desperation passing for ambition. It's the kind of location, this mahogany table probably more expensive than a car, a view of the metropolitan skyline that shouted, "We're important." Louder than a motivational sign at a used car dealership, the leather chairs squeaked every time someone shifted to check their Rolex. I was seated in my typical location, the one nearest the door, the business equivalent of the Thanksgiving kids' table. At the head of the table sat my wife, Clara Jennings, who might as well have been born there. The woman could make a throne out of a folding chair while evaluating your entire family tree. She was in full Queen of Wall Street mode, her blazer sharp enough to cut glass hair pulled back so tight, I wondered if it caused migraines. This was the quarterly report meeting for Jennings and Company, the consulting firm that bore her family name and my blood, sweat, and 7 years of unpaid labor. I was there for one reason. I built the entire IT infrastructure, every automated system, server, and algorithm that kept this place running smoother than Clara's PR smile. Did I get recognition? Sure, the kind you give the guy who invented intermittent wipers? Formally acknowledged, never truly praised, and definitely underpaid? Clara's early line that equity in marriage beats equity in business turned out to be corporate for "I'm not putting your name on anything." Around the table sat the usual suspects. CFO Richard Peaton, born in a Brooks Brothers suit fueled by black coffee and the tears of interns. VP of Operations Diane Kowalski, with the warmth of a tax audit and the charisma of a spreadsheet. Marketing Director Marcus Chun, more focused on his Instagram aesthetic than actual marketing. And Bethany, Clara's assistant, who had perfected laughing at her boss's jokes 3 seconds before everyone else just to keep her job. Halfway through the numbers, the platinum pen Clara had custom engraved in Manhattan rolled off the glossy table. It thumped the carpet and stopped by my shoe. The room went quiet. Not contemplative quiet, more like someone just ripped one in an elevator quiet. Clara's ice blue eyes tracked the pen, then locked on me like a sniper. "Grab it," she said. Just 2 words delivered like I was the help, not the husband who built the platform behind her PowerPoint. My jaw locked so tight I thought it might crack. Richard's hand froze on his cup. Diane's fingers hovered over her keys. Marcus debated filming it for LinkedIn. Then they laughed. Uneasy laughter turned to full-on cackling. Bethany snorted like a broken printer. Richard grinned into his coffee for the first time in years. I glanced at the pen, glanced at Clara, glanced at the pack of hyenas waiting. A petty part of me wanted to kick it under the table and watch her scramble in $1,000 heels. But the survival part won. I leaned down, smiled politely, placed the pen in front of her and said, "There you go, Your Majesty," in the tone of a toothpaste commercial. The room howled louder. Domesticated Richard muttered, and Clara barely bothered to scold him. Bethany had to step out, wiping tears. Clara took the pen without a nod and continued as if she hadn't just humiliated her husband in front of the executive team. The thing about humiliation is it clarifies. Something cold and centered settled inside me as she rattled on about growth, penetration, and synergies. A large object was about to break, and this time it wouldn't be me. For years I'd built systems, embedded fail-safes, and tucked away backdoors only I knew. Clara thought she owned the company, and she thought she owned me. But you can't own what you don't understand, and she'd never cared to understand what I built. I nodded in the right places while my mind skimmed access points and one specific function hidden deep in the design. I had sworn I'd never use that insurance, turns out never is flexible. The ride home in her Mercedes was a masterclass in awkward silence. She killed the radio. The leather smelled like stress and expensive perfume, and her thumbs flew over her phone like a court reporter at a murder trial. She tilted the screen away as if I was stealing state secrets. I tried small talk, said the presentation went well, praised Q3 and client acquisition. She held up one manicured finger, the universal shut up. I muttered, "Yeah, no problem," and stared at the blur of city lights, wondering if other couples discussed dinner, while I got the silent treatment like a teen past curfew. 10 minutes later, I tried again, suggested Ty take out the one she likes. "No," she said without looking up. "Just no." She texted, smiled a real smile I hadn't seen in months, and whoever she was messaging got the good Clara, while I sat inches away feeling like sentient furniture. We pulled into our very modern, very cold house, all sharp angles and floor-to-ceiling glass. Her heels clicked to the study, the door slammed and locked. I made pasta alone because dragons still demand tribute. chopped garlic like therapy, twirled spaghetti at the giant table with empty chairs, and tried to remember our last real dinner together. After cleaning up, I opened my laptop on the couch, searched is marriage supposed to feel like customer service. The internet said no, which felt like an answer and an indictment. Her muffled laugh drifted from the study and used to be mine. A shadow of a plan formed. Around 9:30, I moved to my desk to check code for a side project that kept me sane. The house creaked, Clara still locked away, probably on her third investor call. Lo-fi beats in my headphones, and then my phone lit up. Clara calling from 30 feet away. I answered, and she said, "I've decided to sever all contact, never return." Her voice cold, rehearsed like a politician's statement. I laughed, asked if this was a trial separation, asked if she was okay. "No," she said, "like you don't exist." The laugh died. She continued, "This marriage is over. Be out by the end of the week. My lawyer will contact you." It was a termination, not a conversation. I pictured a slide deck with pie charts tracking our decline. 8 years ending by phone from the next room. I kept my voice even, said, "So, that's it, you can't even look at me." "I don't need to look at you." She said, "This isn't a discussion, it's a notification." Something in me went very still and very clear relief, replacing whatever hope was left. "Okay," I said. She didn't expect that. "Okay," she echoed, suspicious. "Yes, all right, if that's your wish, you'll get it. But keep your phone charged tonight," I added. "What's that supposed to mean?" She snapped. "Nothing, just good advice. Your busy emergencies happen, wouldn't want you to miss anything." "Are you threatening me?" she asked, voice cracking. "Threatening you, Clara, please," I said. "Stay connected." "Thanks for the professional notice, very you." She started to respond, but I hung up. Texted 3 words, "You will regret it," then flipped on "Do not disturb." I opened a folder on my personal machine labeled Insurance Policy, created 3 years ago. Inside were system architecture maps, access protocols, and most importantly, failsafe alpha. I wrote it in year 2 when I still believed we were partners. It was pitched as security protocol and buried under security protocol's redundant backup v7. A name so boring no one would dig. What it really did was aggressive restructuring. One command with my credentials would cascade processes to make the entire digital infrastructure have a very public nervous breakdown. Contracts, auto-canceling financials, flagging false liquidation alerts, AI making choices from corrupted datasets, client databases going temporarily dark, valuations, nosediving. It would look like catastrophic system failure, the kind that happens when a company grows too fast and ignores IT warnings, which is exactly what Clara did while chasing brand and expansion. I checked dependencies, everything intact, everything waiting. The company ran on servers I built with software I designed and security I implemented. Clara owned the name and the clients. I owned everything else. My phone lit up with her calls and texts. I ignored them all. There was poetry in this. She told me I didn't exist. And soon she'd learn what happens when the unseen decides to stop existing too. At 11:47, I had time to spare. I cracked a beer, then a whiskey from the drawer because Clara never notices me anyway. I opened the master diagrams, lines and lines, like a caffeinated circuit board connecting years of late, nights and sacrificed weekends, including sessions on our honeymoon while she schmoozed a client at a Cancun bar. There nestled 17 layers deep sat failsafe alpha, my nuclear option. One keystroke and the empire of cologne and phony confidence would learn the difference between owning the spotlight and owning the code. I smiled and hovered my fingers over the keys. "Let's see how you like getting a notification, Clara." Need for redundancies, about the importance of documentation and proper security protocols. "You're being paranoid," she'd said more than once. "Just keep everything running, that's your job." Well, now my job was apparently over, so why should I keep anything running? I took another sip of whiskey and thought about the meeting, about that pen rolling across the floor, about the laughter, about Bethany snorting like a malfunctioning printer, while Richard muttered domesticated, and Clara just sat there accepting their mockery of her husband as perfectly normal and acceptable behavior. I thought about all the dinner parties where I'd been introduced as Clara's husband instead of the CTO. Or even just "This is my husband who built the company's entire technical infrastructure." I thought about the credit I'd never received, the equity I'd never been granted, the respect I'd been systematically denied. And then I thought about that phone call, that cold, calculated corporate termination disguised as a marriage ending. I've chosen to sever all contact, stay away forever. Like I was a vendor whose contract wasn't being renewed. Like 8 years of my life were just a line item she was removing from her budget. My fingers moved across the keyboard almost of their own accord. Pulling up terminal windows and security access points, I verified my credentials, still active. Because of course Clara hadn't thought to revoke my system access. Why would she? She probably assumed I'd just quietly pack my things and disappear like a good little dismissed employee. Maybe send her a fruit basket and a thank you note for the privilege of having served. I checked the company's current status. All systems operational, servers running smoothly, the automated processes I'd built humming along perfectly, making Clara money while she slept, completely oblivious to how fragile her empire actually was. I could see the real-time data flowing through. Client transactions processing, reports generating, the AI making micro-decisions about resource allocation. It was beautiful in a way. A complex machine operating flawlessly because I designed it to operate flawlessly for her. I opened another window and pulled up the company's current stock valuation. Trading had closed for the day, but the after-hours numbers looked good. Really good. The company was valued at just over $3.22 billion, which was frankly insane, considering we'd started in that cramped apartment with a dream and my coding skills. Clara had been profiled in Forbes last month, featured in their 30 under 40 issue, even though she was 37, but apparently they'd made an exception because her visionary leadership was just that impressive. The article hadn't mentioned me once, not even in the acknowledgments. I wondered what Forbes would write about tomorrow. The clock in the corner of my screen ticked over. 52 p.m., I had 8 minutes until midnight. Not that midnight was significant in any practical sense. The code would work just as well at 11:53 or 12:47 or 3 in the morning, but there was something poetic about it, something cinematically satisfying about timing the fall of Clara's empire to coincide with the death of one day and the birth of another. New beginnings and all that inspirational poster nonsense. I pulled up the failsafe alpha file one more time, scrolling through the code to make absolutely sure I hadn't missed anything. Every function intact, every trigger properly configured, every cascade protocol ready to execute. The code was clean, elegant, some of my best work, which was saying something considering the quality of what I'd built for this company. My phone buzzed again, another call from Clara. Number 47.